before phones. Now, let me share a personal story that dates back to a time before the internet, a time before cell phones, emails, or even online dating apps. I must admit, I'm a middle-aged woman who's always been fascinated by frightening things. From creature feature movies in my early years to my current habit of listening to narrators read true stories right before bedtime. I've developed a taste for the macabre. Please forgive my bluntness, but there are plenty of stories that just simply never scared me. Tales of a girl being approached by a stranger, asking if she's single, or being followed by the odd kid throughout high school. These all fail to send shivers down my spine. Perhaps it's because I've had my fair share of genuinely chilling experiences. Granted, some of these encounters were a result of my own foolish choices, while others seem to be mere misfortunes. Now, let's go back in time to when I was in my early adolescence. I'd always been labeled as boy crazy throughout my entire life. The idea of having a boyfriend fascinated me as far back as 3rd grade. It's during this time that the event I'm about to recount took place, when I was around 11 or 12 years old. Somehow, I managed to get my hands on a CB radio, the communication tool used by truckers during their long hours on the road. It was a captivating device, and it allowed me to connect with people from all over. I would engage in conversations with numerous individuals, completely oblivious to their identities or even locations. One day, I struck up a conversation with a man who claimed to be around 19 or 20 years old, and he happened to be in my city. Despite my honesty about my age, I didn't find it creepy at the time that an older guy would be chatting with me. I saw it more as a flattering attention, given my fondness for boys at the time. He flirted with me over the CB radio and eventually asked if I could come over to meet him. Being infatuated with the idea of meeting a guy, I eagerly agreed. It's important to note that back then, I was quite sheltered and had limited knowledge about matters of sexual nature. So when I entertained the idea of meeting this guy, or any guy for that matter, the most I anticipated was an innocent closed-mouthed kiss, if that. The thought of a kiss alone thrilled me, and age didn't really factor into my thinking. Of course, as an adult and a parent, I would never condone a 19-year-old meeting a 12-year-old. During our CB radio flirtation on that particular afternoon, I made the impulsive decision to share my address with him. However, I was wise enough not to reveal my apartment number. I figured that once he arrived, I could discreetly assess the situation and decide if I wanted to venture outside to meet him. Unaware that I lived in an apartment complex, he parked in the middle of the complex and called out for me. Peeking through my kitchen window, I spotted a tall man, likely in his late teens or early 20s, standing beside a sleek sports car. For some inexplicable reason, fear gripped me, and I lost my nerve. I remained hidden behind the window, observing him until he eventually returned to the car and drove away. Once he was gone, I returned to the CB radio, intending to apologize for my absence. But to my shock, I was met with a barrage of furious yelling. He unleashed a string of expletives, seething with anger and vowing to kill me if he ever got a hold of me. His threats echoed through the public airwaves, leaving me petrified and unable to respond. That incident left me profoundly frightened. I couldn't understand the sudden hesitance that prevented me from going outside to meet him, as I was typically more impulsive. However, in hindsight, I came to realize that I narrowly escaped a very dangerous situation. It dawned on me years later that he was a predator, capable of unspeakable acts. Looking back, I shudder to think of the potential harm that could have befallen me. It serves me as a stark reminder that even in the absence of modern technology, dangers lurk in the most unexpected places. While now I appreciate the importance of caution and getting to know someone before meeting in person, my younger self was fortunate to have been spared from the clutches of a predator with malicious intent. It's not often that you hear a story like this, where someone talks to someone over a CB radio and tries to get to know them. But then again, times have changed, and back then, this could have been a lot more common than you'd think it is. Some days I would sit there and wonder exactly why I went through with what I did. Why was I talking on the CB radio to a random man that I'd never met? And I guess if you think about it now, the things we do on the internet are likely the same story. People meeting on Tinder or meeting on Hinge, going out to see each other in real life, never having met beforehand. Dating's never really changed that way, has it? The only problem here is that I gave him my address. I gave him the place to go to, and I knew exactly what I was doing and how wrong it was. The silhouette of that man standing there next to his car is an image I can never get out of my head. Peeking out through the window and just seeing him screaming my name, trying to find me. I was boy crazy, but I was certainly crazy for even wanting him to come to my house. Being 12 years old at the time, I knew that he would overpower me even if I went outside, so the best option was to stay in. But being so naive, I really didn't think of it as such a dangerous situation then. Now that I look back, I noticed that he really could have made it a dangerous situation. That could have been the last anyone heard of me, and I feel it's the same way today. Dating hasn't changed in the sense of meeting up with somebody and just seeing what happens. People are still interested in random meets, and I feel it only gets easier day by day for people online to trick younger people into meeting them in person. Thankfully, nothing happened that day, but I'm sure it could have if I was to step outside that door and meet with the man like I planned on doing. I guess the only thing I can say to those who are still listening is that if you do plan on meeting someone in person, someone that you're genuinely interested in or genuinely have a new connection with, just plan on being careful, because you'll never know who shows up, especially nowadays. Whoever's behind the screen that you're talking to could be a completely different person in person. Don't fall victim to the predator behind your keyboard.